So after countless delays, countless cancellations, and countless scripts being thrown out the door, we finally have the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which I'm sure many of you might be excited for, and even some kids. And what I will say is flat out, just to start out this review, I thought the movie was good. It's kind of messy at times, but it's a good mess. It's a fun mess, and I think this is a great introduction to horror for younger ones. Now, is it gonna be great for maybe kids under the age of 10 or 12? No, not at all. But for me, it actually harkened back to the days of when I watched horror films with my dad. PG-13 horror films and maybe 13 Ghosts as well. With the cheesy, over-the-top nonsense and stupid storytelling. And when you go back and watch those nowadays, you're like, these are not good. This film is kind of that same essence that I think will be a great introduction to horror for children, the same way that kind of the video games are as well. And I'm actually happy that we have a film like this that can now intersect and bring new viewers into a genre that they may have never been a part of yet, or maybe have just watched animated films such as like Monster House, Coraline, Paranorman, and things like that. And that's where we're here to say that Five Nights at Freddy is a surprisingly good movie, and actually a really great video game adaptation, but in the end of the day, not a great movie that is kind of messy at times, and I can see a lot of people hating, finding it forgettable, and even I found some elements to it all, but I still had fun, and I'm excited to talk about this movie nonetheless. So make sure to leave your thoughts down below, hit that like and subscribe button for more movie content on a daily basis. I love talking movies and TV and video games over here, and if you're certainly here, you're probably in the right place, and you're probably also a geek as well. So let's dive into this. What is Five Nights at Freddy's for people who don't know? It's about a troubled security guard who begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. During his first night on the job, he realizes that the night shift won't be so easy to get through. Pretty soon, he will unveil what actually happened at Freddy Fazbear's. Now, this stars the likes of Josh Hutcherson, Matthew Lillard, Piper Rubio, and Elizabeth Lail. And, I mean, two of those names right off the bat on there is Matthew Lillard and Josh Hutcherson. You're instantly going to be excited for them because they, for me, have just been a part of countless different aspects of my childhood. And I thought they were great in here. Josh Hutcherson's a very easily and likable actor that anytime he's put into a role, no matter what the script is, you're going to root for him, and that's kind of how I felt in this film. He's a down on his luck guy who's just looking for a job, gets his security job, and the way that it kind of reflects and the way that his character is motivated, I actually felt on board for his story. Matthew Lillard is not in the film enough, but I love what he did in here, and I'll leave it at that. Piper Rubio I thought was going to be a little bit of annoying. Child actors can go back and forth, but I thought Piper actually brought a nice charismatic performance. And Elizabeth Lail I thought was good. I think she's fine for what the role gives. Personally, for me, she just had a little bit too much of exposition-heavy sequences, which is not her fault as an actress. That's a fault on the script, which we're going to talk about because I had a lot of issues with the script. But the reason you're going to come to Five Nights at Freddy's mostly is because of the animatronics. That's the biggest part of why you play the games, is because it's animatronics coming to life and trying to kill you. And we've had countless films like this over the last few years that have kind of tried to come off the success of Five Nights at Freddy's before this film has even come and sufficed. And what we've gotten from the past is like the Banana Splits movie, which was god-awful and one of the worst films I've ever seen. And then we also had Willy's Wonderland, which I actually was a pretty big fan of. I couldn't find my Willy's Wonderland shirt for this review, but I like that movie, and I thought it had some good ideas. So if you like this movie and you like the concept, that's like an R-rated version of this with Nicolas Cage. We're not talking about that movie, though. The thing with that, though, is it had a weak script. And it seemed like they had the general idea, and they just decided to make the film based off those ideas. Five Nights at Freddy's, while I've played the game, yes, I've played the first two. I think they have some fun jump scares to them and some cool tidbits and lore and mythology. There's not a lot to the story, and that was my one worry going into this movie, I'm not going to lie. And I really want to jump to that script because that's some of the weakest elements of this. So we'll put a pin in that for now, but Again, going back, the practicality of all this and the reason that you go to see this movie is because of those animatronics. And the animatronics just were fantastic. They got the Jim Henson Company in here to help them create this idea and these puppets, and they all looked flawless in every single sequence. Every single one, I thought they were just wonderful and delightful, and I actually wish there was more of them. I'm not going to lie. Not more animatronics, but just more time with them. There's a whole middle portion of the film where they really tightly knitly use them so well. And the way that they crafted and created those sequences were actually some of the best and most memorable parts of the film, and I wish we actually had a little bit more of that. Now, I understand this is a cheaper film to make on the dime, and definitely some things do feel cheaper in any, even indie-ish style. Like, even for a Blumhouse film, I was kind of surprised how indie-ish this film felt. I understand why they probably couldn't use the animatronics for the entirety of the movie, and they had to result in using some of the mythology bits of how they move and how you can bring those scares, but I still liked them. And I think Emma Tammy is actually the reason that they work. The direction from her is really solid in bringing them to life and in bringing this entire scenario together. On top of that, I also like some of the sound design and the musical choices as well. I think all of that really adds to the tone of this film. And in the end of the day, this is a good introduction for kids into the horror genre. But like I mentioned, it's messy. And it's messy, and the film will not work for everyone. I can see a lot of people finding it forgettable. I can see a lot of people finding it a mess and maybe not even a great film. And I'm probably going to be in the minority on liking this one. Am I going to say that, yes, this is the best horror film ever and I'm going to love it and remember it and buy it on Blu-ray? Probably not. The problem with this movie is the script. The script is awful. This is one of the worst scripts I've seen for a horror film in a while. And a lot of that goes down to different sequences. When I say different sequences, I very much mean in the situations and the atmosphere that the film contains. So flat out, the atmosphere is kind of weak at times. Some of the set pieces that they have for the animatronics, while are fun because of the puppeteering and the practical effects of those, they're not memorable nor have tension to them. And a lot of that just kind of goes out to how the script can lay that out and what they have to work with in this idea and the scenario and this pizzeria that they had bought out and that they had crafted and created. While again, I like the practical effects, it just felt cheap. Alongside that, the story feels cheap. Characters are literally coming in and out for just exposition-heavy sequences, such as Elizabeth's character, that was honestly quite wasted for a majority of the movie and could have had a very much more interesting story and dynamic once you start to get to know her character a bit more. And as much as I thought the mythology and the lore were interesting, everything was just completely predictable. Again, I know some of this, but talking to other people, I mean, it's clearly written within the first 20 minutes. What is going on here? And while it's not like the characters are dumb and can't figure it out, it's just for the audience, there's no suspense in that category. And all the dialogue just feels very haphazardly put together, strung together to just give us sequences of jump scares that genuinely the jump scares are decent. I'm not going to lie. I thought some of them were actually pretty good, but it leaves really to no rest on any rewatchability on the movie. And it's a movie that I could recommend for parents to show their kids. Again, if you know your child the best and this isn't going to scare the shit out of them, but it's a movie that's not too dark, but tries to be dark, tries to find that middle ground. And I think I enjoyed it for what it was because I'm a really big fan of puppeteering and practical effects. But God, that story was awful. And it's something that I think really is barely holding the film together. Everything else is kind of holding it up above. And I just sat there wondering what choices they were trying to make here. Again, I think there was a story that they could have found here, and there was a story to be told. But it just feels very repetitive in its nature. And I think Five Nights at Freddy's is going to be one that is overall panned by critics, maybe liked by fans. Definitely kids are going to enjoy this film the most, and that is what I'm excited to see the most, is how many kids will be able to say in the next decade that this is their introduction to horror. Because for me, we all have those cheesy horror films that we go back and follow and are not great, have a terrible script, but we remember and have those nostalgic moments with them. And so with all that said, I'm going to give Five Nights at Freddy's a C+. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts. I cannot cannot wait to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you play the video games? Were you excited for this movie? Let me know down below. Again, this is now in theaters and on Peacock starting this weekend, so thank you so much again. And of course, until next time, stay classy.